Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. It is a lovely day today to talk about the Daily Beast smearing independent journalists. And this time they went after me. They've been on kind of a tear of late. I would say the last year has been a lot of focus for the Daily Beast on going after left pundits, comedians, journalists, you name it. But anyway, I'm here to set the record straight, not only about the smears against me, but also what has been said about others. But nonetheless, for those of you who are here, please make sure that you're liking this stream. Make sure that you're subscribing to the channel. Make sure that you're helping boost the algorithm in any way you can, sharing it, commenting, all of that. And also, of course, although the Daily Beast, Matthew Forrester, this so-called journalist, has a problem with this, it is imperative that independent journalists like myself who challenge the imperialist narrative remain sustainable. So please do support me at patreon.com/DannyHaiphong. That's the best way to do so. However, I'm going to put this out there right now and then later on as well. Don't forget the other options in the description, and do not forget all the other ways to follow me, because the implications of this work, even though this journalist is marginal, even though the Daily Beast barely has any readers, what they try to do here is overtly censor myself and many others, friends of this show, friends of my work, people who I respect, to censor them, to take them off altogether. And we've seen that this has a precedent. We've already seen all the censorship of so-called Russian state-affiliated media and so many independent journalists who've experienced this. So this is what the Daily Beast is trying to do. They're trying to take us off. They're trying to use whatever influence they think they have as a Clinton-funded, Clinton-backed outlet to erase our voices. So that's why I say support me on Patreon. That's why I say follow all of my work in all the places you can. You can find that all on Twitter. You can find that in the thread. I'll go over that later. But man, I woke up this morning to walk my dog this morning. I wake up early to do that because he's on this schedule. And usually I go back to sleep, or I try to, for a few hours before I get to work get to work. And so I wake up and I get an email from a comrade, from my co-editor Carlos Martinez over in London. And so, 4 or 5 hours difference out there. So I look at it and it's out. So this article by Matthew Forrester, or if that's how you say his name, he had emailed a long time ago, earlier this month, beginning of the month, right? Sending this 750 word kind of like diatribe questionnaire, just completely slanderous, smears, anti-communist filth, McCarthyist filth. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to answer this BS. This is going to take me forever. So I don't respond. And then he gets back to me with a shorter version. I'm just like, okay, let me give him a few. Let me give him a few responses. And I did. And of course, in the article, he barely cites any of it. So kind of a waste of time, but I will be publishing those responses in an article. I also invited him on this program, and I'll show you his responses to that as well. It's actually quite funny. He seems to be highly offended that I would even invite him on, that I would call myself a journalist. And I guess I could say the same about Matthew Forrester. So nonetheless, keep liking the stream, keep sharing it, subscribing to the channel, all of that. Keep supporting this work. This work is being attacked, and this article is just one example of that in a long line of attacks that people like me have been receiving for months, for years, ever since Donald Trump's administration, Russiagate, all of that. This work has become much more difficult, and so your support is definitely very much appreciated. So I wake up this morning and it's out, and I'm just like, okay, now I should respond to this, because this is an attack, and it also has implications, broader implications than just what they're saying about me. Look, a lot of people have views about me. I don't care really about some reactionary shit libs opinions about who I am. I don't care about what corporate capitalist, imperialist, monopolist, whatever. Yeah, I don't care what liberals. I don't care what they think about me. I mean, that's the point. I wear it as a badge of honor. If they're offended by my existence, if they hate my work, then that means I'm doing something right. So I don't care about that. We've been saying this at Black Agenda Report. We're glad that we're on the blacklists, right? We don't want to be associated with the corporate media. We don't want to be associated with neoliberals. We don't want to be associated with imperialists. So fine. But then there's the other element of it, the direct assault on our ability to do this work, right? So, assault on free speech, quote unquote, but really it's a political assault. It's about repression. It's not just about stifling speech. It's about stifling the very notion of resistance to imperialism. And so that is what's so significant about this. And I'm going to get into it. But before I do that, I just keep liking the stream, keep sharing it around, keep subscribing to this channel, right? It's the middle of the day on a Friday. Don't expect a huge audience today, but keep boosting the algorithm so more and more people see it. I will also be on, before I get into the content, I will also be on Revolutionary Blackout Network's Anti-Imperialist Summit. I believe it's 5:30 p.m. Eastern time. So check me out there. Okay, I know they're doing it right now, and I'm sure there's a lot of people streaming right now. So be sure to just stick around here. I'll be on for about 90 minutes or so to talk about this. But then at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, you can find me on RBN. We'll be talking about the new Cold War, and lo and behold, there's nothing more relevant to this new Cold War than these kind of smears, these attacks. I'm going to show you the long record recently in the last year of what the Daily Beast has been doing. And then, before that, I will be sure to review some key points in this article. I don't think I'll be able to read it all the way through. And the reason for that is that this person literally did exactly what he did to me. He sent emails out with probably 750 word questionnaires like he did with me, and then wrote these hit pieces, almost like separate hit pieces for each journalist. So JINGJING Lee, Max Blumenthal, Ben Norton, Lee Camp, and myself. And so, I'm hoping to have some of those folks on to talk about this problem of censorship, media censorship, because it's really important. And before I get into that, let me just say, let me just try to say hello to people in the chat, all right? Because it's great that you're here. I appreciate it. Please do keep boosting that algorithm by hitting that like button. So day number 1000 said Dragon's Armory, or day one number that doesn't exist, trillions plus, where shit libs get to police the speech of everyone while screaming in pain that free speech, their monopoly of it, is dying. Yep, that is true. Very, very true. So it seems like Unknown Entity, hello, has already read that atrocious article by Matthew Forrester. Unsurprised that this hipster writes for Vice. None of his attacks were substantiated with any evidence. So, yeah, and I answered his responses pretty in depth. So he had a bunch of evidence. So, this is funny from Pen Dog. Our previous work includes the 1 week disappearance of Gonzalo Lira. That is funny because he did get attacked and then ended up being picked up by Ukraine's SBU. And then we have Carboy. I think that's how you say. This is funny. So this is obviously an anti-Danny Dhaiphong chatter today, talking about how I'm complaining about being canceled, even though I voluntarily participated in it. I voluntarily participated in it, but I don't think it's correct for anybody to then go to YouTube and Patreon and say, hey, you should get rid of these guys. You should get rid of these journalists just because you don't like what they have to say. to me, that sounds like an operation. So whatever you got to, if you want to stick around, go right ahead, but do you. So in any event, hello, everyone. Hello, hello. So let's get right into this, okay? So the Daily Beast, all right? The Daily Beast, and I'm tired of the Daily Beast. I'm tired of all these media outlets. They're just the corporate media, the Western media. It is just so painful to watch, to have to, the media atmosphere right now is absolutely just atrocious, right? It is insufferable. It is suffocating. There is just absolutely nothing redeemable about Western media at this time, Western corporate media. And the fact that the Western corporate media, in league with the imperialist countries, and their war machinery, are going after people like us, I think is a testament, one, to the threat that we actually do pose in unearthing and challenging their narratives. And then two, it just shows how desperate they are to maintain their own narratives, because they can see, I think better than anybody maybe, that their hegemony is dwindling and that their legitimacy is dwindling. I mean, nobody likes the Western media, and I'll show you that. Compared, like my post compared to the actual journalist, quote unquote, who wrote this, I mean, the engagement on mine is 3-4 times, despite the fact that I don't write for a major corporate funded outlet. I don't do that. And you would think that the backing of the Daily Beast, which has a lot of money at its disposal, would be able to churn out a few likes and retweets. But nonetheless, we know that polling numbers for corporate media, mainstream media, are very low right now, very low, and rightfully so. It's because of things like this. It's because there is an obvious political agenda. There is obviously an obfuscation of truth constantly. The obfuscation of truth, the fact that most corporate media just does not speak to the needs and the interests of working people, and then have them attack the interests of working people by going after individuals who are speaking out. I mean, that only worsens the situation. So, in any event, right, 5 a.m. this morning, they finally published the hit piece on me, Jing Lee, Lee Camp, Max Blumenthal, and Ben Norton. And so, one, I'm going to review this because I think it's important to review some of the material here. I'll show you a little bit about what the Daily Beast is really all about. And yeah, I'll go into some of the things they said about me, especially because I mean, this is just so basic. This is just so basic in terms of how ridiculous the Daily Beast is, right? It's just, there is just absolutely no credibility here, no credibility that can be gleaned from these kind of attacks, right? It is just a political assault on independent journalism. And now they're not only going after our ability to be on platforms like YouTube, but now they're also saying you shouldn't make any money doing your work, right? That they're going after Patreon and PayPal. I'll go into that a bit because there have been attacks on certain individuals through PayPal, canceling PayPal for people who are, most people don't, for example, raise a lot of money on PayPal, but now they're shutting down, like Mint Press. I saw Alan McLeod, right? These journalists, they are having their ability to make any revenue completely taken away from them, and that's the point of this. So let's get into it, okay? Let's get into first the article at hand. All right. So I'm going to pull it up on the screen. While I'm doing that, keep boosting the stream, everyone. Keep liking it, keep sharing it. Make sure you're subscribing to the channel, and be sure to, of course, support my work at patreon.com/DannyDhaiphong if you are able to do so. Do not let these forces take away the ability just to make somewhat of a living. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a bit. So here it is. All right. Sneaky. That's what we are. The sneakiest defenders of Putin's invasion of Ukraine. So sneaky, as someone pointed out in the chat. I think it was Joe, the Euroswatter, who pointed it out, not in the chat, but in the community post, that we're using our names, our voices, and our platforms to be sneaky about this, right? But we're the sneaky defenders, sneakiest defenders of Putin's invasion of Ukraine. And look at that, those doctored photos. Look how evil. Look at Lee Camp. He's like the top of the pyramid here. You know, all doused in red, Ben Norton, and then there I am. They put me all the way in the far right next to Jin Jing Lee. Samira, you got Samira Khan there, Max Blumenthal, all of us make it into this article. So first, before I get into the beginning, I'm not going to start there. I want to start with what they said about me, because I want to just address these smears and slanders. All right. So I'm just going to scroll down to where they first start talking about me. All right. So the ties that bind, says Matthew, the ties that bind. And he begins by saying that I'm a writer, a podcaster, and an advocate for authoritarian regimes in the aforementioned tradition. So essentially, he's talking about campus and all sorts of things, socialist countries, Russia, right? So I'm for all those authoritarian regimes. As a co-editor of Friends of Socialist China, his advocacy's raison d'etre seems to be defending the modern Chinese Communist Party. In the interest of full disclosure, I'll note here, I've been publicly critical of the Chinese government before. Nobody really cares, but I guess you're showing that you also, you claim that I have a political orientation to my positions. Well, he's showing quite clearly here that he's already coming at this from the position of being critical of the Chinese government. So in an email exchange, he touted China's accomplishment on multiple issues. So I said, and this is a quote of mine, quote, I spent ample time on China because the United States is the most propagandized country in the world, with majorities holding a negative view of a country that is leading the way globally on matters that literally will determine humanity's future. Of course, this article does not go into what those matters are, which I actually explain in the email. Something like poverty alleviation and climate change, they're just those issues that supposedly liberals, especially liberals in the corporate media, say they care about, but they really don't, because then they'll attack people like me who say, okay, well, hey, China's doing something about this. Maybe the US should do something about it. Oh, no, well, I'm the problem, right? I'm the one who's shilling for the Communist Party of China just because I say things like that, even though I don't think there are any lies told there. I think that that's just the truth. I think that mainstream international organizations like the World Bank and the United Nations acknowledge China's major humanity shaking and completely awe-inspiring accomplishment like eliminating extreme poverty that actually exists, right? So does China's investment in renewables and how much progress it's made on pollution. That actually happened. That's still happening. And even smarmy capitalists like Michael Bloomberg will acknowledge such a thing. So this is just ridiculous. So as the Coda story has noted, okay, so here we got the Coda story. What is the Coda story? So this is the sources that Matthew uses. Well, I'll show you what the Coda story is very quickly. Okay, the Coda story is, and I'm just going to pull this up from Ben Norton, who did an article on the Coda story for the Gray Zone quite some time ago. So the Coda story in this article, brought to you by the EU and the U.S. government. U.S. government Coda story smears American journalists who undermine new Cold War propaganda. All right. So there's the article from Ben Norton. And let me just make it a little smaller here. So Ben Norton says, okay, I need to really adjust my screen a bit because it's a little too big still. Okay. It's a little too far to the right. Sometimes I hate Chrome. It's super annoying. All right, here we go. Finally. Okay. So the CODA story, I'm just going to go to the part where he talks about funding, right? So talks about the NED. So the CODA network, which is what owns the CODA story, it presides over it, reaped $180,130 of a grant from the National Endowment for Democracy. All right. So in the NED's blog Democracy Digest, it was celebrated for winning the European Press Prize for its anti-China content. So here you go. The NED appears to believe it is getting its money worth because the U.S. regime change organization followed up with a post on the official NED website a few days later that praised its grantee, the CODA story, for its work. And there you see that. So the CODA story is connected to the National Endowment for Democracy, which is the CIA front. And then you can go into all of these neoconservative pundits like Ann Applebaum, who's on the board of advisors of the CODA story, right? So this is really a military industrial complex, EU, NATO media organization. All right. So that's the source that he uses against me to say that they've already noted, right, that I and many other journalists cited here are supposedly, propagandists, right? And so he says that I'm a denier of the atrocities in Xinjiang, a fact that he does not deny but justifies. In an interview conducted by Lee Camp, he heavily implied that a Uyghur woman, Tuserne Ziawudin, who has spoken publicly about her sexual assault in Xinjiang concentration camp, is not to be believed. This despite the fact that other women have corroborated her story, suggesting a deep and horrifying rape culture exists there. In an email to the Daily Beast, Dhaiphong claimed that the story Ziawudin told BBC is inconsistent with her other interviews, that she was resettled by an organization that has received funding from the NED, and that claims that she has made at present should be further investigated. And look at this. Look at this. This is just, I mean, this is just bad artwork, first of all. This is like a photo illustration. It's just like copy paste over Putin's eyes or something. It doesn't make any sense. It's just complete smear propaganda. And so supposedly the BBC addressed this by saying that she lived in constant fear of being sent back to China. So that's why her stories didn't match up. But all of that is very, very, very dubious. As I said in the email to him, that Ziawudin is connected with the Uyghur Human Rights Project, NED funded, that once she was connected with them, suddenly her story began to change, that she said explicitly that she did not undergo any sexual assault or any kind of sexual attack, rape at these so-called concentration camps, at this vocational educational center, at the prison that she was in. It just didn't happen. So when there are two conflicting claims, I said you need to investigate it further, right? And he's coming out now and saying that I'm a misogynist for saying this, that if you go over this, that false rape allegations are very rare, right? So he's saying they're very rare. And there's nothing at all to say about the dubious connections, the actual context here, the fact that these propaganda stories have been used over and over and over again to smear China and to forward a new Cold War. This critical context is completely left out by Matthew Forrester, right? He doesn't engage in the actual politics of the situation, the fact that this is not just some benign accusation of rape, that this is a political operation meant to smear, degrade, and make China out to be some kind of prison camp, one big prison camp for Uyghurs, when over and over and over again, we've seen that all of the sources of this information, including Ziawudin, are from Radio Free Asia, National Endowment for Democracy funded organizations like the Uyghur Human Rights Project. I mean, how many times do we have to go over this? But of course, with people like this, it's not about the truth or what's correct or what we should look into further. It's all about propaganda and making it out to seem that we are misogynists and apologizing for this kind of behavior. No, there is none of that happening. That is just a complete smear, right? And this is just Look at this. It's rather stunning to see the supposed man of the left blithely dismiss a marginalized woman in this way. Frankly, it was misogynistic in the extreme. What kind of journalist who says they're objective and says they're not writing politically even puts this in their article? Who does that? Who I don't even do that. I don't even go into my articles when I'm analyzing and being analytical and challenging imperialism and say, individual, this is misogynistic and sexist and racist. I mean, this is just amateurish name calling. It has no context. It's all about making us out to seem like we have no credibility, that we're just doing the work of the Russian and Chinese governments, and that we're willing to stoop to very low lengths to do that. And it's just absolutely pathetic. It's absolutely pathetic. It has no basis to, I feel bad even reading this. so so here's the fun thing. This is really fun. So misogynism, misogyny, all those smears. Look, those are just attacks. There's just absolutely no basis to it. Just saying we need to investigate this matter further is true for any accusation. Obviously, Matthew has never heard of the fact that while rape is a serious problem that happens mostly to women, we also have a long history in the United States of Black men being accused of rape falsely and then being sent to prison for their entire lives, or during Jim Crow, being lynched. Right? He's obviously never heard of the fact that you actually do need to do some kind of investigation into accusations made against people in order to get things right. That actually does need to happen. This whole quote unquote believe women no matter what without any context. Of course, you should have an inkling of, okay, I believe that this is a huge problem and that we should take it seriously, but nothing that I say in terms of we should be uh, we should be investigating this matter further goes against that, right? So it's just a smear, it's just a slander, and so there you have it. So I run in circles frequently that see the same characters uplifting each other on their platforms. Norton was interviewed by Friends of Socialist China's Dhaiphong and Carlos Martinez on March 10th. In January 2021, the Gray Zone advertised Dhaiphong as appearing on a live stream with Blumenthal and Norton acting as the two hosts. Dhaiphong admits he considers Blumenthal and Norton to be friends who he respects, and he has been recently apoplectic over Ritter's Twitter ban, so Scott Ritter. In October 2021, Friends of Socialist China hosted a webinar featuring Norton Dhaiphong, CGTN host, and social media personality Li Jingjing. So nothing controversial there. I have no idea why you'd waste words on this. It's just work that we've been doing together, people that I do engage with. I don't see what the problem with that is. It's almost like criminalizing engagement in independent journalism. It's almost like that's going on here. So Li Jingjing, so Jingjing Li is actually the proper way, but Li Jingjing was recently identified by the Associated Press as an influencer who pushes propaganda and whose accounts are often inconsistently labeled as Chinese state media. So a note about that, I definitely want to have Jingjing Li on the program because she has been smeared by the New York Times and the Associated Press. And in the Associated Press smear, which happened late last month in March, an former FBI agent was the source of the the source of the article, and literally that FBI agent says that China has mastered the Chinese lady influencer model for spreading propaganda in this completely, we talk about misogyny. Matthew Forster is literally citing an article that peddles Chinese lady influencer model from the FBI as being somehow legitimate, right? That this is how deep this goes. This is how deep that these forces are within the deep state and the intelligence apparatus. They don't care that their sources that they're just regurgitating are actually just peddling intelligence, U.S. intelligence propaganda, State Department propaganda, and using sexism and racism, Chinese lady influencer model. I mean, give me a break to essentially attack people like Jing Li. And so So anyway, so they talk about Li Jingjing with their 21,000 YouTube subscribers are posting videos that echo Russian propaganda, blah blah blah. So that's a lot. So a lot of this is just continuously attacking Ben Norton, Li Jingjing, myself as hanging out and doing streams and talking to each other about things like Ukraine, right? And this is what's funny. I love this. So what Li Jingjing, because I don't know why they're just putting Li. I mean, it's just so insensitive. Li doesn't mention in either her interview with Ben Norton or Danny Haiphong is that they're all listed in as co-signatories of an ideological statement deriding the propaganda war against China. The document laments unsubstantiated accusations of genocide and forced labor in Xinjiang echo endlessly in Western media and governments, along with conspiracy theories about the origins of the pandemic. So, first of all, Li Jingjing signed the statement. It's a public statement. It's something that we at Friends of Socialist China created before an event we did on this very issue, which she spoke at. So there's absolutely no secret here at all. So this is the sneakiness, right? The sneakiness is that we're being secretive, but nothing that we're doing is actually sneaky because it's all public and you can find it. And Matthew, did not such a great job at finding things because he even had to send me an email being like, you never tell your followers that you are part of Friends of Socialist China. And it's like, dude, it's literally in my Twitter bio. So anyway, so it goes over how, okay, China is guilty of genocide, all this nonsense. And of course, if we open these, I'm sure we would find, oh, well, that link doesn't work. I'm sure we would find all these links actually don't work. So I'm not even going to waste my time. But nonetheless, you would probably find Adrian Zenz or some other NED backed source peddling the genocide propaganda that we've gone over on this channel over and over and over again, right? How many times do we have to go over this? So the link between, anyway, Jingjing Li answered back, saying the link between soft Russian apologism and Uyghur genocide denial stems from the problem identified earlier, an inability. Oh, so Li is actually, this is Promise Li from Laosan. I don't even want to read this nonsense. So Laosan Collective, right? It's this collective of people who claim that they're for some kind of like liberation against all empires, but they mainly target China, and they came up during the Hong Kong protests, right, to smear leftists who challenged the fact that a lot of the Hong Kong protests, the vast majority of the protesters, were in organizations or being led by organizations that were backed and funded by the National Endowment for Democracy, by the imperialist countries, that it was a real proxy war in China, an attempt to create some kind of color revolution scenario there. And they have over and over and over again, right, from this article where Promise Li, the leader of Laosan, is like the main source of like a friendly leftist for Mr. Forrester. The same happened in The Nation with David Clion, as I've covered in this channel. David Clion had many quotes from Promise Li talking about tankies, and we're tankies, and journalists who challenge the anti-China narrative are tankies, and all this nonsense. So this is how all of this propaganda is just recycled. It's just the same thing over and over and over again. And so Forrester continues saying, considering the fact that Li, Norton, and Haiphong appear to have been 3 of the original 30 signatories of the Friends of Socialist China statement, one can imagine it is something they did not forget. It should be remembered that even on her personal channel, she puts herself forward as a journalist. This is Li Jingjing. And her vlogs have the air of journalistic programming. I mean, really? This is like, it just feels like racist. It just feels like they're saying that Jingjing Li is just kind of a robot, that she's doesn't have any independence at all, that she's just a robot of the Chinese government. Totally lacking in transparency. The fact that Li Jingjing does not even mention the statement during relevant interviews, in my opinion, be construed as journalistically unethical. It cannot, in my opinion, be construed as journalistically ethical. First of all, she literally spoke at the event. She spoke at the event as a journalist from China. There's absolutely nothing here. It's just one big nothing burger, attempts to defame us. And then I said I defended myself from criticism that this is a deceptive or unethical by indicating on his Twitter bio that he reveals his involvement with Friends of Socialist China. It's not just I reveal, I'm co-editor. I'm co-editor of Friends of Socialist China. Carlos and I created the damn thing. It's a lot of Carlos's labor, to be honest, but I help out in different kinds of ways, articles, spreading the word, all of that. I co-edit the thing, right? I help organize the events when we do events. There's absolutely nothing here. We do this work completely voluntarily. We don't make any money from it. It's just something we do because we care about it, because we believe that socialism in China is an important thing to learn about. We believe that people on the left in the United States need to know more about it. We believe that there needs to be a more robust conversation and dialogue about this. And we believe that there's something we can learn from China. Ooh, what a novel concept. What a terrible concept. There's absolutely nothing here. Dhaiphong hasn't limited himself to just denying repression in Xinjiang. He's also put forward similar propaganda that lines up with Russian justifications for the invasion, including the misinformation about biolabs. First of all, with the biolabs issue, all I said was we should be very critical and scrutinize the fact that Victoria Nuland literally seemed to be shaking in her clothing, right? Her knees seemed to be shaking when she was questioned in front of the Senate Foreign Intelligence Committee that these biolabs could end up in the hands of Russian forces and that we should be very concerned. Those were her very words. Why should we be concerned? She didn't really answer that question, but that seems to me to indicate that there may be some nefarious activity. Never have I said that there was nefarious activity. Again, this is just all ways to make us seem like we are trying to put forth some kind of evil propaganda agenda when really all we're doing is questioning the narratives. So, like Camp, they say, he has found himself monetarily rewarded for his efforts on Patreon. And then, of course, so this is what's really funny. Matthew tried to say that, ooh, you have over 400 subscribers. So if you average $10 per month for each subscriber, that means you're making $40,000 per month, right? And I was like, dude, completely and utterly false. You have no idea how Patreon works, right? And he is here. I'm going to show you his tweets because I couldn't help but tweet on his thread of this article. I had to just say something. He tries to claim that I'm first world privileged, right? This guy who's publishing for the Daily Beast as a quote unquote freelancer is saying that I'm the one who's first world privileged because I make money on Patreon. And I told him straight up, and this is not untrue. I said, after taxes, I make well below the income required to meet the cost of living in NYC. This is how Patreon works. People support people on Patreon with what they can for as long as they can. And most of the times they can't do it forever because guess what? Most people who subscribe to people like me, they are working class people. They are trying to just make it, and they just feel compelled for political and moral and all sorts of other reasons to support people like me. And so they do for as long as they can. And usually I don't know about other people, but I know for me, the average donation after all is said and done is something like $5. There's a lot of $1. There's some people who do more. It's always a variation. But after taxes, because Matthew obviously didn't do his homework, Patreon is considered self-employment and it doesn't get taxed directly. So you got to pay taxes on Patreon later. So you end up actually making a lot less than maybe what the subscriber count would seem to suggest. But of course, it doesn't matter, right? All of that, those are just facts. Who needs those when you're writing smear pieces, spreading Cold War propaganda, trying to claim that Patreon is making independent journalists rich? So, I mean, with that said, guys, you know, this just shows that there is a huge attack on people like me and the people cited in this article. And, you should be supporting it. So please do support my work. I'm just going to put that out there because there is a huge problem here. And I'm going to show you why in a second. So still, he has more than 450 subscribers, they said, and that can't hurt. And he's excited that it's growing and it's vital to his operations, tweeting many thanks to the new subscribers. I reached 410, my goal for the month. So this was some months ago, obviously, last month or something. So anyway, I'm building toward the capacity to support myself and plan trips to China and elsewhere in the socialist world to conduct on-the-ground analysis. You can support me here. Okay, I mean, is that wrong? Is that so bad to raise money so you can do journalistic activities? But according to the Daily Beast and Matthew Forrester, I'm making it big on Patreon. So here's where the problem really resides in this article, because I'm not going to get into the individual smears, okay? Because the individual smears are they're things that those folks can answer. I might go over a little bit of the beginning with Lee Camp. There's some because Lee Camp is honestly, this article, it starts with Lee Camp because I think they see Lee Camp as this example, right, of someone who actually was employed by RT America. And so they see that as a huge opportunity to show that, look, there's actually propagandists here. And so they go after him pretty harshly in the beginning. So maybe I'll go over that. But the others, Ben Nor and Jin Lee, I'm hoping to have conversations with them in the future about what the Daily Beast said, because I don't want to spend this whole thing. I want to talk about, what the Daily Beast really is and be able to conclude this. So when confronted with videos from Dhaiphong and Camp's YouTube channel, YouTube said they do not violate their policies. So what do you think this means, right? What do you think this means when someone like Matthew Forrester, when the Daily Beast says they're confronting YouTube? It means they're literally going to YouTube and reporting us. They must be reporting our videos. They have connections inside of YouTube, and they're saying, hey, don't these videos violate your policy? Why don't you take them down? That's the suggestion here. So this means that the Daily Beast is attacking us, is trying to get us taken down. So YouTube had to say, we have established policies that prohibit inciting violence, promoting hatred, including towards the Uyghur people. Additionally, we've shared that our teams are working to remove violative content related to the war in Ukraine, and we removed more than 1,200 channels and 30,000 videos for violating our policies. So here you have the Daily Beast, you have Matthew Forrester actually doing something useful, getting us real data about how YouTube is very proud to take down our channels when they feel like they can, and they feel like our content supposedly violates their standards. And so this is just championing censorship, and this is what I saw was the main problem here. The smears and all of that propaganda, that was coming, right? That's going to happen. That's going to continue to happen. But it's this effort, it's this campaign to take us down, which is really the problem here. Because, I mean, look, it's right here. It's right in the article. He's saying that he went to YouTube, or the Daily Beast, the editors, whoever did, it doesn't say specifically, went to YouTube and said, hey, these videos violate your policies. So like snitching, like journalism as snitching. And then Meta, Facebook, claimed it's taking active measures against disinformation. We already know all about that. We know about how deep Facebook is in the censorship game. I mean, Facebook is virtually worthless for anyone who does work like myself, and for so many others. And so here's Facebook saying that they have 80 independent, quote unquote, partners who fact check claims across the globe, and all this nonsense. And then Twitter as well, right? And so Twitter tells them that they've been increasing their labeling of accounts of Chinese, Belarusian, Russian state-funded media deleted bad actors, curated quote-unquote reliable information in Twitter moments, and monitors dishonest narratives, among other actions. This includes, of course, not mentioned here, partnering with the Australia Strategic Policy Institute, which is funded by the State Department, the Australian Department of Defense, funded by military contractors, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, in order to censor people on Twitter. Doesn't mention that. So Patreon said, when it comes to misinformation, we're mindful we're balancing two responsibilities: protecting expression and livelihoods of those using the platform and keeping the platform safe for all who use it. So Patreon took like this neutral stance, but we know that all these platforms are subject. When you see them literally going after us, going to these platforms and saying, why aren't you censoring them? That's creating a literal pressure campaign to do so. A literal pressure campaign to get us off social media, to get us off YouTube. I mean, that's essentially what this is. So I'm going to now go, I don't want to read the rest. It's not that much longer. Let me just go up. I just want to read a little bit of what they said about Lee Camp, and then I want to get into some of the smears that they've been engaging with otherwise. Okay. So in the beginning, this article says misinformation is a profitable racket. Just ask Lee Camp. So this is literally going after Lee Camp. It's disgusting. And Lee Camp is a very busy man right now, but we're definitely going to have him on this as well. Okay. On this program as well at some point to address this censorship, because he's been absolutely just throttled, and it's just disgusting. Because I've met Lee Camp. I respect him. He's worked. I mean, the guy has just worked super hard. I mean, he's a comedian. He's, doing this program, right? I've heard him talk about all the work that went into Redacted Tonight. I mean, this dude was working hard, and you have these cowardly water boys and girls and whoever for the military industrial complex going after people like this. It just makes me sick. So in March, the former TV host found himself out of a job when RT America shut down. So making light of the censorship, an awesome thing to do as a journalist, right? So since RT's closure, he has continuously directed his followers to give him money to give to him on the fundraising platform Patreon. There he has more than 1,900 donors giving in tiers of $5, $10, $25, and $90. Assuming he has supporters. So again, they're going after the amount, right? He must be making six figures per year, and this would net him thousands of dollars per month. The guy's trying to make a living. I think he has a child, he has a family. He lost his job. I know he lives in Washington, D.C. I'm out here in New York. I know what it's like to be living in a very expensive city. He's trying to this was what he did. This was his craft. He had a job at Redacted Tonight, and the censors, the repressive apparatus, the state got rid of it. What do you expect him to do? It's just disgusting. It's just disgusting that they want to starve us. They don't want to just smear us, but they want to starve us. They want us to literally be like we are this, right? Because I consider myself to be a person who's in the condition of the broader working majority, working class, but they want us to starve. They don't just want us to be some kind of surviving class, right? Like we're just surviving out here. They want us to starve. They want us to have absolutely no revenue stream because we're misinformation to them. Get rid of us. That's what they want. That's how insidious this is. This is how this is political. This is a political operation. So a strong reward for self-styled leftist, anti-war, anti-imperialist who is seen fit to deny repression, atrocity. So it just goes on and on and on, right? So it talks about how popular Lee Camp is. Well, Lee Camp's only been holding a major television program on RT for years, right? So he's 150,000 on Twitter. He's also a comedian. So, you get to know people as a comedian. He's been doing activism for years. So, even for someone like myself, right? I've only been active on Twitter. It says 2014 on my profile, but I've only been active since 2019. I've only been really doing social media hard outside of Facebook since that time. And because there is a thirst for this, I've been able to gain thousands upon thousands of Twitter followers just because I talk about my politics, promote my work. There's nothing insidious about that. And the same goes for Lee Camp. He's been doing the same thing for a lot longer. And so it just, right. And we don't have to go into all of these smears. I think you get the picture here. He talks about, of course, tankies, right? The Lao Song Collective loves to talk about us as being tankies. And he says, my observation indicate that many subscribe to an ideology known as campism. Same thing. David Clion. This is almost like a script. David Clion said this in The Nation, that there's a campus mentality, that where the world is divided into competing factions. Their well-justified criticism of the U.S. leads them to reflexively defend Beijing or Moscow, the other camps. There is also the extremely strident belief in multipolarity, with their often cogent critiques of U.S. hegemony, leading them to see the need to help rival nations grow powerful in order to challenge and weaken it. Often this means protecting them in order to help their rise. And so Promise Lee, the Hong Kong-born leftist activist, writer, and member of the Lao Song Collective, talked about how, we can only critique U.S. and NATO, and these tankies say that there's only we shouldn't be talking about Putin or China, right? So, and then they pulled in Samira Khan. And so we can go on and on and on about this, but I'm actually going to close this up because I'm getting sick just continuing to look at this article. But there you have it. That is the that is a particular article, right? Smearing us. And the big takeaway here, it's not that they disagree with our politics and that we are considered, right, these misinformation agents. That's something I've been hearing for years. It's something I've been talking about for a long time. I wrote about this with Dave, with in regards with the Nation and David Clion, and you even had people like Dave Zirin get in on the mix. But really, I'm talking about the actual operative campaign of censorship that people like Matthew Forrester are promoting. Matthew Forrester literally went to YouTube, or his editors or something or other, his his handlers went to YouTube, went to Twitter, went to Meta and said, look at all these accounts. Why aren't you censoring them? They seem to violate all your quote unquote rules. That seems to be like snitching, right? That doesn't seem to be journalism to me. But nonetheless, there you have it. There you have it. We are being attacked. They're trying to take away our livelihoods, the very ability to just sustain our work so we can do this work with the ability and time. I mean, I work part-time. I can't spend full time on this still. I'm still working up to that. Many people have been doing this for full time for so long, have been smeared and have had their job. Like Lee Camp lost his job. I mean, this is just so insidious and disgusting and gross. It just shows how, I mean, corrupt isn't even the word. It's reactionary filth. It's McCarthyism. It's the new Cold War in the media sphere, in the information sphere. It is an information war. That is what's being waged against us. And the Daily Beast has been doing this kind of almost without any restraint over the past year or so. So I'm just going to pull up a few examples of this. So I don't know if you remember in April 2021, the Daily Beast came out with this article. Dirtbag left stars are flirting with the far right. And you had Jimmy Dore. Look, that's a pretty nice picture of Jimmy Dore right there. And you just had, all this stuff because you had a Boogaloo Boy on and all of that. And look, we don't agree. Like, all of us are going to disagree on some things. And so whether it's COVID or other issues, yeah, there'll be disagreements. But these smears are unacceptable because it's not about our disagreements. It's not about particular issues. It's about our stances on war and peace. It's about what we do agree upon. It's about what our work has focused the majority of time on, right? And so here you have them smearing Jimmy Dore, quoting him. It's called class consciousness. You recommend that some of our people in our same class we don't talk to, right? And so, this is all, this is a coordinated campaign. So they did that against Jimmy Dore and others. There were others in there. I think Alex Rubenstein made it in. True Anon made it into the dirtbag left category. And that was a culmination of Russiagate, right? It's all about, because Jimmy Dore has a lot of followers. It's all about because he promoted positions on peace and anti-imperialism, that he needs to be smeared as some kind of far right, whatever, and absolutely incredulous, absolutely ridiculous. It cannot be taken seriously. Now, okay, there's a lot of, I don't know what's going on. There must be some work being done because I'm literally shaking right now. So apologies for that. Again, if I were really rich, I would not live in a huge apartment complex in a very low income neighborhood in New York City just so I could live. But nonetheless, I'm going to pull up another article that the Daily Beast published this time. It was about Gonzalo Lira. And so while I have openly opposed Gonzalo Lira winning an award, um, you know, because I think that there is some reputational issues. I don't agree with him on everything. But nonetheless, this hit piece on Gonzalo Lira, did have consequences. He was picked up by the SBU. And this is what they published late March during the military operation where he lived. It was a pretty sleazy thing to do. And it was all about, right, smearing which are, for the most part, from what I've heard, very legitimate criticisms of Ukraine and the policy that is being underway right now. So there you go, another smear, right? So Gonzalo Lira, he got smeared, and there were consequences to that, right? He was picked up by the authorities, according to him, and he spent a week detained, and he's okay. But I mean, he directly links it to this article being made public. And so one more time, okay, this time a month later, just a couple days before this, Lee Camp actually put me onto this. He couldn't come on today, but he put me on to this, said I should look this up. So Kim Iverson of The Rising, right? The Rising, which is corporate media, but they have, it's this kind of flagship program that used to have Crystal Ball and Sagar. And well, I don't agree with everything that goes on The Rising or even from Kim Iverson. We do follow each other, and I do respect the fact that she comes out questioning the anti-war and anti-imperialist or the pro-war, pro-imperialist narratives, right? I appreciate that. I believe that's great work. So here you have the hill to die on, right? And they talk about how staffers have complained to management about one of their hosts, Kim Iverson, who brands herself as a tell it like it is, no BS broadcaster. And, they say that she's parroting pro-Kremlin talking points, Ukrainian neo-Nazis, about Ukrainian neo-Nazis, and seemingly defending the Chinese government's brutal treatment of the Uyghurs, because she had a whole segment on that, which Ryan Grimm took a special issue with. So there you have it. Smearing Kim Iverson, right? Talking about how almost supporting some kind of effort to get her taken off of The Rising. I mean, it's just like over and over and over again. Just attack after attack after attack after attack. This is what it's about. And this comes, right? These attacks by the Daily Beast, right? These open calls, because in the article written by Forrester, there's almost like an open suggestion to conclude, saying that we came out to the YouTube, we we talked to YouTube and Meta and blah blah blah, and they answered in this way, suggesting that what they were presented with by the Daily Beast were suggestions to take us off Twitter, take us off Facebook, take us off Patreon, right? So this comes, right? This comes as PayPal, right? So this was dropped just a day after. There's been a lot made out of how PayPal is now cutting off journalists and analysts and people who, are talking about Ukraine and other things. And so Caitlin Johnstone wrote that PayPal is blocking multiple alternative media figures critical of U.S. empire's narratives. So here you have just people being told you cannot use this anymore. You cannot use PayPal anymore. And who are these folks? Well, it's Mint Press News has been told. Mint Press News, Alan McLeod, have been banned from PayPal for unspecified reasons. So Manar Adley came out with that on Twitter, April 28th, as I said yesterday. The same has happened to other folks. So I know Caleb Maupin is another person who was banned from PayPal. So this is a pattern, right? I don't use PayPal that much, so I don't know if that's going to happen to me. The concern really is Patreon. So, I may do some, I also do Substack and other things. So I may suggest that, but there's so many ways to support me in the description. But there you have it. You have PayPal now shutting the doors. Okay. So this is a coordinated and concerted campaign in the Biden era to escalate the new Cold War through the information war aspect of it, the spread of a new McCarthyism with very real consequences. Lee Camp losing his job. You have people being taken off of a PayPal. And you also have what already is a coordinated campaign on the part of the big tech corporations in league with U.S. intelligence, with forces like the Atlantic Council and others to suppress, right? Google, YouTube, all of it, to suppress our voices, to throttle channels like this one, which has been throttled, guys. That's why I'm always saying like the stream, subscribe, all of that stuff. I don't say it to be cute. I don't say it because I want you to like me. It's because I get all the time. I've been unsubscribed. I don't get notifications. I got this notification hours late. So that really affects our ability to be seen. And this has been ongoing. This began when the Prop or Not in 2017 was published in the Washington Post. Jeff Bezos's and the CIA's outlet published in the Washington Post, which said that there is a laundry list of sources, which included Black Agenda Report, Naked Capitalism, all sorts of independent media outlets. I believe Mint Press News was also in there. A lot of independent media outlets were targeted and said, you're fake news. Now it's time to suppress these so-called fake news outlets. And Google, YouTube, all of them got started. They got started in targeting us, pushing down viewership. I still remember, rest in power to Bruce Dixon. I remember when he told us, and then he published about it, that right after that occurred, there was a 40% decline in viewership of Black Agenda Report's website. I mean, this is how critical, this is how important, this is how impactful all of this is. All right. So that's what you have in the more specific sense. And then I'm going to talk about the Daily Beast. The Daily Beast is a propaganda outlet, guys. It's a ruling class outfit. And it's not even a good one. I mean, it's not even a popular one. Okay. And I'll show you how unpopular it actually is. So the Daily Beast. What is the Daily Beast, right? And before I get into that, of course, like all that stuff. Like this stream, continue to boost it, share it, do all of that good stuff. Share the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell as many times as you can until it actually works. And of course, the best way to support this work is on my Patreon, patreon.com/DannyHaiphong. And there are also other ways to do it as well in the description below. So it's all appreciated. And guess what? It ain't to make me rich, Matthew. Matthew was invited here, by the way, but he couldn't be bothered, right? He can be bothered to send 750-word diatribe questions and McCarthyist filth, but he can't be bothered to respond to his claims in any way that gives both the source and himself a voice in this matter, right? Can't be bothered with that. So anyway, I'm going to show you just a few things about the Daily Beast, just so you know exactly who the Daily Beast works for. Okay. So you may or may not know this already, but the Daily Beast is not independent media. The Daily Beast is a brand. The Daily Beast is a brand. It is a product of the IAC, which is a huge firm. The IAC has all of these corporate brands, all these brands that they manage, right? That are subsidiaries of them. A lot of it's media, most of it's media, right? And you might recognize some of this if, In Style, Investopedia. Some of these are well-known. People Magazine, like these tabloid outfits, right? It's mostly look at that. Daily Beast right there. Daily Beast is a brand of the IAC, which is a huge media firm. And you might ask, okay, it's a huge media firm. So what? There's a lot of corporate media out there. Well, there's an interesting little fact about the Daily Beast that doesn't really get too much attention. I've seen it here and there. But the Daily Beast is not just a media firm. The Daily Beast is a firm that has as its board of directors Chelsea Clinton. In the board of directors, she is a director. She is not just some, she is a director of this organization. So it stands to reason that Chelsea Clinton and the Clinton family, these neoliberal imperialists that have caused so much damage, are really the architects of Russiagate and all of these conspiracy theories, smearing the left, the horseshoe theory, all of it. The Clintons are all behind that, and they've done a lot worse than that, as you all know. The war crimes, the Clinton Foundation soft peddling money and weapons to Saudi Arabia, undermining Haiti to make it a low-wage nightmare for working people there. I mean, the list goes on and on. The Clinton Foundation and Chelsea Clinton is right at the heart of this, and they own the Daily Beast. So really, it is. And Brian Diller, this is a Fox News. He's a Fox News magnate. He's a huge corporate media magnate. He got his start over at Fox, but he works at Paramount. I mean, he's a corporate media Hollywood magnate who got into the news business, which is kind of fitting, right? Kind of fitting that someone like Brian Diller, so-called Hollywood magnate, so-called Paramount magnate, will get into the news media, because that's what the news media really is. It's just propaganda. It's kind of like going to the movies. You expect to be deceived and lied to. And so that's what the Daily Beast serves under, right? It's just a tabloid. It's a tabloid for the ruling class establishment in the realm of news. While People Magazine, of course, is all just a celebrity gossip nonsense. So, I mean, that's what you have here. You have ruling class media, corporate media going after us. They're going after us, guys. That's why you got to support us. That's why at any moment we could be taken off of these channels. That's why I got on Odyssey, right? So you can find me there. That's why I got on Odyssey, because I knew that I needed a backup that wasn't going to be subject to the whims of YouTube and Silicon Valley. That's why I have Telegram. I don't really do it that often, like update it. I'll update it enough to stay on it, to have my channel. But that's why I got these backups. And so I'm going to show you that tweet in a bit. But I just want to show you how pathetic. All right. Actually, unfortunately, I lost it, so I have to go back. How pathetic that this attack really was. Okay. Um, did he might have blocked me. Actually, now that I lost the tweet, let me see. Usually, sometimes that means that they've blocked you. Here we go. No, he hasn't. Has he? Let's see. Nope. Great. So he hasn't blocked me yet. All right. So Matthew Forrest, I'm going to show you his tweet thread, and I'll show you my tweet thread just to give you an idea of how kind of pitiful these attacks really are. Okay. Because I posted a breaking on this. And so let's compare and contrast a bit. All right. So I'm just going to pull up Forrest's smear. While I'm doing that, please keep liking this. Please keep subscribing, all of that good stuff. All right. So here you go. Forrester says, my latest story in the Daily Beast on those peddling misinfo about Ukraine, Xinjiang, and Syria. So trying to cover the whole gambit. So there you have the title. Blah, blah. And look at this. 32 retweets, 7 quote tweets, and 68 likes. And then I commented, not surprising, no one seems to care about your baseless McCarthyist smears against independent anti-war journalists. I invited you on the program once this was released, and no answer yet. How much did Clinton-connected IAC pay you to produce this propaganda? And so, we got into a little back and forth, but he resents that I call myself a journalist. He says that I continue to apologize for rape and misogyny. And so there you have it. But he says something interesting that I want to show you. I think this is just kind of sad. All right. So I'm going to show you my reply. Where's my reply? Here we go. So he says that he's a freelancer and my primary source of income comes from driving you Claude. McCloud, I guess, whatever that means. I'm a working man, says Matthew. The idea I'm some kind of paid shill is kind of laughable. Libel that spews from the keyboard so much internet diarrhea, I will be paid a modest sum as my freelance journalism, as a freelance journalist journo is, whatever. So then he says, I will not legitimize your program. Your actions are misogynistic, Islamophobic, la, 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 la. First world privilege. I'm first world privilege. I'm not the one getting published in the Daily Beast, but I'm first world privilege. And he's a driver, he says. I don't know who he drives for, what he's driving. But all I had to say to that was, wow, that makes it even worse that you'd carry all this water for the State Department for free. And I almost feel sorry for the guy. I really do. I really do almost feel sorry for him. That this is, he really believes in this stuff. He really believes in the things that he's saying. He really is invested in smearing people on the left and smearing anti-war journalists. I think that's just sad. It must be some kind of life to not make any money from those who have all of the money. If I were going to sell out and shill for the establishment, I at least want to get paid. I just want to get hired. I mean, look, that article was not very well written. You heard me read it. It was hard to even follow. Who wants to read like 5 different articles about 5 different people? I mean, it's drivel. No one reads the Daily Beast like that anyway. You only got 68 likes. 68 likes for a major media outlet? Like, can you get the producer? Can you get Chelsea Clinton to share it? Like, come on. Give me a break. So I'll just show you what I wrote, and then I can show you, right? And you should go to the Twitter and support this, not just support the tweet, but I'll show you, there's a post to where all my stuff is, because I'm about to close up in the next 15 minutes. But I want you to just know that I got a lot going on that you can continue to support me at, even should I not be here anymore. Because that's a possibility, guys. I hate to say it. It could be the case at some point that my work also will end up in the sphere of Lee Camp elsewhere, right? That we will be taking off these platforms. Scott Ritter, Pepe Escobar, who I had on the program not too long ago, a couple days ago, they've been taken off of Twitter. It could be me too. So here I broke this story, talked about all these journalists who were smeared, and then I posted, the screenshots here of what was said about censorship and basically how the Daily Beast is clamoring for it directly to Silicon Valley corporations. And I'm just going to show you here that a 750 plus word email. So it might be a little too small. But here you see, just look at all these questions. I mean, it's just like, that's just one, and then here's the other, right? So literally, like 15 questions, 10, 15 questions, 750 words. I counted. I put it in a Word document. I love to do that. I love to see how much time is spent on this. So I was hesitant at first, I said, because he says I'm against journalistic ethics. I mean, I think these questions, like how much money do you make given your subscriber count? Do you see yourself as a journalist or a political propagandist? Is your support for Russia simply a rejection of NATO, or are you some kind of a supporter of capitalist governments? Like all of this, like widespread misinformation. Like, what kind of question is that? Here's all the things that are correct, says Matthew. Zelensky was not installed by Maidan. Unfortunately, his big funder, Igor, was a big part of Maidan. Post Maidan, Ukraine governments are illegitimate until one aligns with Russia, you say. Why do you keep calling him a coup government? Why do you keep calling Zelensky a coup government? I don't know, because the coup wasn't reversed, Matthew. There was no reversal of a coup there. What reversal did you see? I've only seen more escalations, like banning political parties that had not yet been banned. What happened after Ukraine's government was couped by a U.S.-backed color revolution? What happened after 2014? The Communist Party was wiped out of political existence, at least in the sense of being able to participate politically. But then he has the nerve to say, why would you call it a coup government? I mean, do you see these questions? This is absolutely ridiculous. How? It's a coup government because the coup happened and the government's the same. The government might have changed face, might look different. Zelensky's now the president. But once you stage a coup, the only way that's reversed is through an actual political change, a political struggle, not just changes of faces within the coup regime. This is just politics 101, right? This is just politics 101. So anyway, so I posted the questions and then I'm responding today, but here's the email I sent. So I sent answered your questions below, and then I'm going to be dissecting it like I'm doing right now. And I invited him. This was April 10th. I invited Matthew onto this program so you can be present and back up your claims and give viewers a conversation about this. No answer. And then, as you saw, he doesn't want to legitimize me, he says. So here are just, I'm going to post this tweet, I think, in the chat so you all have it. But this is all the links of where you can support me, okay? Where you can find me. One of these places you'll be able to find me. So one of the reasons I want to do this stream is because you might not be able to find me in certain areas that you already are following me on. So I put, the Left Lens here, the YouTube channel, then the Spotify is just the audio version of these. My podcast on Call-In every Sunday at 11:30. You can follow that. My Black Agenda Report articles. It's not the full archive, but it's the most recent. So you can see that. And then, the backups are the Telegram, which I will use more should I be eliminated on Twitter. And Odyssey, same deal, right? I'll use Odyssey more if I'm off of YouTube, and perhaps I'll go to places like Rockfin or Rumble. Have not decided that just yet. And then, of course, the ways you can support me, there are more in the description, but the best are really Substack and Patreon if you want to help out financially, because, a rich guy like me needs more and more money, right? I just need more money, Matthew. I am money hungry. It's not like I have said publicly on streams like this that once I make my goal of $3,000 per month, which I'm not too far from, that I'll stop asking for money. But $3,000 per month in a very expensive city is not that much money after taxes. Because as I said before, Matthew, and I'll just address you directly here, there's something called taxes in the United States. And guess who has to pay taxes? It's not Jeff Bezos, and it's not these huge corporations. It's not the richest people in the world. It's people like me. It's people like us. It's people like working people, people who, live on their wages, paid by bosses, or if you're doing something like I am, live by those who support your work, what you can gain in revenue. We have to pay taxes. So actually, if I'm making $3,000 per month on Patreon, you can just, get rid of a third of that at least, because the taxes are brutal out here, especially self-employment. Brutal. Ask any creator, quote unquote. Ask any of them. They'll tell you. So, anyway, the point is here you can find it. I'm going to put this in the chat. All right. So it's a link to all those links. Save them. Save those links. I'll put it in the description as well, perhaps after the video. But save those links. All right. And be sure to, continue to follow my work regardless of what happens. Because there will be, there will be a place for it. But in any event, there isn't really that much to say on this, right? There really isn't that much to say. And so, later on, 5:30 p.m., I'm going to be on RBN for their anti-imperialist summit. So definitely catch that. And I think one of the tragedies here, I'll just close on this. One of the tragedies about this is not that we should expect anything different from the corporate media. I don't lambast or condemn the corporate media for doing what they do, because I expect it. We should expect the corporate media, given its relationship to the state, given its imperatives, what drives it, how it profits, that we should expect attacks, right? We should expect attacks like this. We should expect that these corporations are going to directly advocate for our suppression. We should expect that. However, what makes this so disgusting and filthy to me is that while these journos, as Matthew calls himself, focus on those who work their ass off, right? Lee Camp, Ben Norton, Jingjing Lee. I mean, we work our behinds off. Jingjing Lee has a full-time job and she does that channel. CGTN is not like a 9 to 5 job. You are a journalist at CGTN. There are times where I've been like, hey, you want to do something together? And she'll be like, sorry, working. And it's kind of late at night. It depends on, of course, it depends on events, but she's working her behind off. And then to try to provide information about China to Western audiences to get people like this, like these smarmy, like hipster, imperialist. I don't even know. He calls me a clod. I mean, this dude, I don't even know what to say, right? Because I guess I'm built a little different. It's not really how you should be going about things. Like you wouldn't, would you do that? You know what I'm saying? Like this is just not. This is just filth. It's trash. And so Lee Camp, I mean, this dude was doing weekly episodes, writing a television program weekly. I mean, that's hard work. Ben Norton running a website, Multipolarista, Gray Zone, Max Boom. Like these are hard jobs. Like to do that on your own, you got to spend a lot of time. Myself, right? I've been publishing weekly since like 2014. Guys just discovering me, I guess, because guess what? There's a new Cold War to be waged. And now that Russia has a military operation in Ukraine, you got to intensify it. So now suddenly Danny Dhaiphong is on the radar about what he says about China and what he says about Russia. But I've been doing this since 2013. I mean, I was organizing well before that. But I've been writing weekly since 2014. Hundreds of articles since then. Hundreds. An average of at least one per week. Now doing this channel as well. Now doing a podcast as well. I mean, this is hard work. This isn't like, this isn't, that takes a lot of labor, and I work part-time. But I'm first world privileged, right? Even though I'm putting out my work in service of political education, in service of class consciousness, class struggle, in service of humanity, in service of anti-imperialism, of peace, of revolutionary transition, regardless of how it comes about, right? To teach, to learn, to build. But we're first world privileged, right? I'm misinformation. I'm a Russian agent. I'm a Chinese CCP mouthpiece, right? Just goes on and on and on and on and on. I mean, you can't make this up. This is happening, all right? So, in any event, right, these attacks on hardworking people, people who we're not going to agree on everything, because we live in America, baby. The left can't agree on 100%. That's just, it wouldn't be America if it wasn't for that. There's a lot of still division, and we have disagreements amongst each other. But one thing I would never do is smear anyone based on disagreements, or even, I've said this to Ben Norton when I was on his podcast in that he's doing on Callin, rules-based disorder. I would never, ever come out publicly and try to make some kind of campaign out of disagreements for my own benefit. You just don't do that, right? And I apologize for any of the background noise, everyone. This might be a theme. I'm living next to a construction site now, so I can't predict when there will be construction. I had no idea it was going to happen, but it's happening now. So apologize if you can hear anything, truck noises, drilling. There was shaking of the apartment, which was lovely. I just found this out like last weekend. So sorry about that, but it's something we're going to have to deal with. Nonetheless, right? We were not going to agree on everything, but we should always unify against this. We should always hold each other up around this. We should not let these ruling class parasites divide us on this issue, especially when the most important issue to me, which is imperialism, we have agreement on, right? That's what we need to do. We cannot let people like this, outlets like this, succeed here. And so we got to keep fighting, opposing this. I certainly will continue this work. No amount. This is not intimidation. These are not things that hurt feelings. These are not. I mean, there's no basis in fact here. I wish they could dig something up on me. They had absolutely nothing there, as you could see. You're a part of Friends of Socialist China, and well, no shit. I'm the co-editor. Oh, you signed a statement for Friends of Socialist China. No shit. I'm the co-editor. It's just like, you said this about Russia. Well, it's on my Twitter. You could easily just look at Twitter and not waste your time in front of your keyboard just repeating what I said on Twitter, right? You answered the question in this way. Well, these are just my politics. I don't know what you want me to say. I don't believe that China is some kind of authoritarian nightmare. Sorry. I have many contacts there. I know people there. Shit, I have people in Shanghai. I have multiple people I know in Shanghai who completely invalidate the propaganda about the lockdown, quote unquote, there, right? About the lockdown situation, the COVID-19. I know someone who's in Costco residence, the very screaming building that you heard about. I know an American there. He lives in there, just like I know an American in Wuhan who lives in Wuhan, and he went through the first initial lockdown from late January to April, right? I know these people. It's not even just Chinese. It's Americans too. It's Westerners. I know people out there. So yeah, I'm not gonna have the same. I'm not gonna have this propagandistic opinion about China because I've been there. I know people there. Who am I to believe? People who are living that life every single day that I can actually then verify from my own experience? Or am I going to believe some hack from the corporate media who's telling me that everything in China is bad? You got to be real naive to believe that over the real thing. Treating China like some kind of heart of darkness as if nobody's ever been there, right? You can pull that nonsense off with Latin America, Africa, because there has been just so much isolation that has been built between the imperialist countries, the people of the living in imperialist countries in those regions. How can you do that with China, the country that has grown immensely and connected to the world in ways that most people just can't even understand because it's massive. The interconnectivity economically, politically, culturally, but it exists. And it's just absolutely ridiculous that people would sitting down here, typing 750 words of questions just to validate their reactionary political views. No, there's obviously a political agenda here. I don't trust anything that Matthew Forrester says. I'm just a driver, just a freelancer. Why are you carrying water then? God, get a life. Do something else with your life. You know what I'm saying? So, nonetheless, we have real important issues to talk about, right? This is a distraction. We have to talk about Joe Biden sending $33 billion more worth in weapons and military aid to Ukraine, which would like end homelessness in the United States if it was truly invested in housing. That seems to be a pretty big issue. Julian Assange, the slow rolling lynching of Julian Assange, Mumia Abu Jamal's birthday just passed. He's rotting in prison. We have real issues to get to, real class struggle issues to get to. And yet we are getting caught up and mired in the smears. So I wanted to do this today because you got to answer them. It's in some respect. Others have done so in past smears, and this is it's not my first time. I think Coda, I was in the Coda story smears. I didn't respond to it in 2020. I was just writing at that time, and I was like, damn, I don't really want to spend time typing about this. But now that I'm doing this work, I thought it was fair and reasonable to respond. So there you have it. I've responded. I'm still going on. My work will remain independent. I will continue to rely on all of you to support my work however you can, whether it's just you're here, liking the streams, subscribing to this channel, hitting that notification bell so you know when I go on, free follows on Substack, follow me on Twitter, all of that, regardless of how you do it. Or if you're able to, right, help me get closer to my goal financially. So, I don't have to like struggle 100, all the time to like pump out work and get things done with with financials involved in the back of my mind. Then you can support me. Patreon.com/Dhaiphong. Get an annual. I love annual subscriptions on Substack. They're incredible because people don't have to think about them after that one time for 365 days. And honestly, Substack is much better, in my opinion, about how they pay you, and there's less censorship there. I know people have told me that, and it's true. So, support me there. All of that, right? I'll continue to do this. I'm not gonna, there's no backing down here. You can't back down to these smears. And so I hope in the future, I have some plans coming up before I leave you, so I can get some lunch and do life things Friday. Happy Friday, everyone. I'll be on RBN too, so catch me there. Anti-Imperialist Summit, Revolutionary Blackout Network, 5:30 p.m. Be there, help support. I got some plans for next week. Hoping to come back on with Margaret. We're trying to work out a time. Trying to get Hood Communists editor on. We're working on that. That should be real fun. And also trying to get the anti-Asia anti-Asian racism panel back together in some capacity next week as well. So, I'm hoping to do at least two with that in mind. Next week, I have an article ready to be published, trying to figure out whether I'm going to publish my responses to Forresta first as an article, or just publish this article about Elon Musk and Nazis chanting Azov in New York City, what it all means. It's all about liberalism. So I'm trying to figure out which one to publish first and where. But I'm doing the work, right? So, and that's not going to stop. But, this is really teaching us a lot, that we need to be together. We need to stay engaged, regardless of whatever disagreements. This has been a really hard 2+ year period. There's just no way we could see eye to eye on everything, but we have to maintain our integrity, and we have to maintain our relationships with each other, and we have to be sure to counter back and defend those who are smeared. So, it's not just about me here, although I didn't go over the narratives of Max Blumenthal and Ben Norton and JINGJING and what they said about them. It's like you have to come out unequivocally. What they're saying about me, they're going to be saying about them. So for those journalists, we got to defend them as well. And we got to do it in a way that's unified, without discrimination. And that's how we have to be. That's how we have to behave. And so, salute to all of you. Thanks for coming. Before you leave, make sure you like this stream. Make sure you share it, subscribe to the channel. I know we're all getting tired of corporate media, but the onslaught continues. And so, we have to continue to be vigilant and continue to counter all of this real misinformation, right? Actual misinformation, not these smears and attacks against us, saying that we're the ones who are spreading misinformation. It's like, no, this isn't he said, she said, they said. This is a coordinated campaign of repression. It's McCarthyism. It's COINTELPRO. It's a new era, right, of universalizing the technologies of repression against all of us. And it doesn't matter that at this moment, right, we thought, there's some people who say, oh, well, there's not a big movement. It's not like the 60s where you had Black Panthers, AIM, all of that. It's not like the 30s, 40s, 50s building up into the communist movement, the world socialist movement. Yeah, it's not like that. But in this moment of crisis, even those voices who are trying to live in that spirit, who are trying to reproduce that for the modern era, who are trying to rebuild the left in whatever way they can, we're being attacked, and it's ruthless. It may not look as ruthless as assassination attempts, although, we got to knock on wood on that. We have to understand that it is a ruthless campaign to take away people's access and capacity to spread their work on what should be public utilities, like the internet, like social media, like search engines, all of that. It's insidious, it's nefarious, it's very damaging, and it creates a very dangerous precedent where corporations and their governments that they control have the capacity to tell you what is and what isn't acceptable, right? And if you know anything about corporations, the capitalist class, the ruling class, you know that all that is acceptable is whatever will reproduce their class, from the farthest right to the so-called liberal left, right? That is the sphere. That is where we're going to be trapped in. That is the reality of the situation. And so we have to push back. So I'm grateful for all of you. Salute. I'll be back, taking the weekend off, but I'll have Cold War Brew on Sunday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern on the Callin app. So make sure you get on that app. Make sure that you're catching that podcast. I'll probably follow up on this, just have a similar conversation on that. But I'll probably take calls about it. So please do. Actually, while I'm here, why not just share the show with you? So when you download it, the app, Callin, do this on your phone. You can tune in and just, we'll just chat. Okay. So 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. And we can have a conversation. All right. So please do please do like the stream before you're out, subscribe, all of that good stuff, and support me if you can before you go, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. And I will be back with you again very soon. Peace, everyone.